Welcome back to Python MC. We're here to break some EarSketch. We're going to break some global variables in EarSketch. So we have our code with track equals 1. We call it inside the function with the global keyword track. So global track means that now track is not a local variable. It's referring to the global value of track. So I'm going to read that number 1. And then when I update track plus equals 1 on line 35, because I use that global keyword track, it'll update the value on line 14. Now, if I eliminate that line, global track, now it doesn't know what track is because it's now, there's no local variable for it and it can't access the global variable. So you haven't passed track as an argument. So let's say we pass track as an argument. So we set this up as we define it as a parameter, and then when we call it, we pass it as an argument. So it passes the value 1. The problem is when I run that function the second time, you haven't updated the value of track, so it tries to drop in the second set of tracks starting at 1. So you get that orange error down the bottom, the overlapping clips error that we've seen a million times before. That's because it started at 1, then it increased 2 to 3, then you haven't increased the global variable of track, so it tries to drop in the second set of beats at 1 and 2 and 3 because you just started back at 1, because you're just passing the value of track, but you're not updating the global variable of track. You're basically you're passing this track as effectively a local variable, okay? And it just happens to start, you're passing it the value track equals 1. Now, let's say I have track equals 1 as a local variable inside the function, and I don't pass it these arguments. I don't have a parameter for passing it track. So now I just hard code track equals 1 into the function. I get rid of track as an argument, and I try to run it again. I'll get the same error. I get a overlapping track error. So you'll see the typical error in orange. Same thing happens. It's a local variable, so it increases to 4. But when you call it again the second time, it restarts the counter at 1, okay? Because you haven't updated some sort of global variable. You just have a local variable track, and when the function ends, it goes back to the original value. So when you call it again, it says track equals 1. If we just call this t or like some other name, then you would see, okay, clearly this is a local variable because it just happened to have the same name as that global variable track. If we called it t, it'd be much more clear. We have the same error because it's still a local variable, and so when you call the function again, it starts off back at 1 again, and we've seen this in other errors before. So if you want to access that global variable and update it, that will fix the code. So we should go back to global track, but let's see, how else can we break this in EarSketch? Okay, so let's see, we have track as a local variable. What if we got rid of this and we say global track? But the problem when we call it, we're also going to try to pass it the value track. So we have an argument track, a parameter track where we define it and we pass this argument track. So it's trying to pass track as a local variable basically by passing it the value track. You're also referring to global track, so it says there's this conflict. You have the same name track for both the global variable and the local variable, okay? Because you're basically trying to say, here's the variable track. Oh, and by the way, I want you to also refer to this global variable track. And so Python gets really confused and it throws you this error message. It's a syntax error because you're basically giving it this like weird conflict with trying to call the same variable twice in different ways. Okay, so how else can we mess this up? Let's see. Okay, we'll get rid of this track argument. Like when we call the function, we'll get rid of the track parameter when we call it. Let's try to assign a value when we say global track equals 1. Well, that's not how global variables work this way. When you use this global keyword, you're not assigning it a value. You're just saying, I'm referring to the global variable track, which in this case is on line 14. And I'm going to want to read that as well as update it. Okay, so now you can see it's working perfectly fine. It's increasing the track by 1 each time, and it's increasing the global value of track. So when you call the function again, it knows where you left off. It knows track now equals 4. So it inserts the list of beats again. It knows it's going to insert it in the right place. And so you can see now our beats are perfectly layered. They're dropping in one after the other. It starts at track 1, and the next beat goes in at track 2, the next beat goes in at track 3. And so it gives these like kind of nice like layered beats. And it does, when it calls the function again, so those next 4 beats, it knows to start at track 4. So that's it. We'll see you again on Python MC.